Hi everyone, welcome to the next review video for the biology or living environments regions. This is Unit 3, Topic 1. So the first thing in this unit, or this topic, is looking at cell division. So first we ask, what is cell division? So as we know, DNA is stored genetic information located in the nucleus of the cells, and the first step of cell division is that the DNA, will replicate, or the DNA replicates. Once the DNA replicates, the cell, as it sounds like, will divide into two cells with identical DNA. And this cell division occurs all throughout our body, and it's how we continue to grow. So we create more cells. The copies of DNA replication, which I'll just explain quickly now, is that the DNA copies itself by untwisting and unzipping with the help of special enzymes, and then it adds its complementary base sequence. As we know, A goes with T and G goes with C. It adds a complementary nucleotides to the exposed bases to result in these two identical copies of DNA in different cells. So now we're going to look at the cell cycle, which is the actual process of dividing. So the first thing in the cell cycle is interphase. And as we can see here on the diagram, interphase takes up the majority of the time. The majority of time, if you take a cell at any given point, the chances are that it will be an interphase. And interphase is really getting ready for cell division. So the first part of interphase is the G1 phase, which is just the first growth of the cell. The cell in this phase is growing and just starting to prepare for cell division. After G1 comes the S phase. And in the S phase is where the cell starts to replicate its DNA. So it goes into those steps that I was just talking about above, like untwisting, unzipping, and then adding in complementary nucleotides. Then after this S phase is the G2 phase. And this is the second growth phase and interphase when the cell is really getting a lot larger and getting ready for cell division. So this is when it's getting ready and about to divide. So after G2 phase and the cell is fully ready to go, ready to divide, is when we go into actual cell division. So cell division has two parts. The first is mitosis, which is the division of the nucleus. So the nucleus with all the DNA splits. As we know, the DNA has copied itself, so there's twice the normal amount of DNA. So this splits evenly. And then after that step is cytokinesis, which happens for a very short period of time. But cytokinesis occurs, which is the splitting of the cytoplasm. And once the cytoplasm of this very large cell occurs, then you have two separate cells, both with their own cytoplasm that are membrane bound. And now you have two fully independent cells, both with the full set of DNA with an identical copy, that can then continue and go back into interphase to eventually be ready to divide again. So now we're going to look at mitosis. So mitosis occurs in the somatic cells of the body. So in mitosis, our somatic cells divide. And what our somatic cells are really any body cells except for sex cells. So everything in your leg, your arms, your toes, your stomach, those are all somatic cells that will undergo mitosis. And in the process of mitosis, two identical daughter cells will be produced, and both will contain the full set of DNA. So in mitosis, we go through all the steps of growing, the DNA splits, and then the cell splits into two identical cells, both with the full set of DNA. So I'll explain that quickly with this picture here on the bottom. So we have our original cell right here we see 4 chromosomes. This then duplicates here. So now everything is doubled, as you can see with this chromosome shape that we always associate with. These line up along the cell's equator. The chromosomes separate here. And then they go into these two different cells, both with the exact same number as the original cell there. And now we have two independently functioning cells that can then go back over here to start growing and continuing the cycle, going into interphase and eventually dividing to produce more cells. So the next one we have is meiosis. And meiosis specifically occurs in the reproductive system. So meiosis is different. This is the first, difference between meiosis and mitosis. For females, meiosis will occur in the ovaries where the egg cells are being produced, and in males, it will occur in the testes where the sperm is being produced. And meiosis produces 4 gametes. This is the big thing about meiosis. Instead of producing two different cells like in mitosis will produce 4 gametes. And what a gamete is a sex cell. So for men, it's the sperm cell, and for women, it's the egg cell. And once these gametes are produced, you want to know that they are not identical cells. Each gamete is unique, and they all contain a half a set of DNA. So these four gametes, this is why we have so much variation when with childbirth, because you have fully unique gametes that merge together to form a unique genome in every individual. So I'll explain mitosis a little bit more. Here we have the image below, which shows the original cell starts with the regular number of chromosomes. We have the 4. It splits again. It splits, so now you have double, as we see with that chromosome shape there. This grows, and then they align. It splits once, so now you have each cell has 2 chromosomes like this, and then it splits a second time. So there are 2 phases of splitting, and each of those 2 daughter cells split 2 more times, and now you have 4 cells that each have only 2 chromosomes instead of the original 4 chromosomes. And this is why you get unique offspring and genetic variation in sexually reproducing organisms, because these merge and they're all unique with different sets of DNA. Okay, so now the final thing in this lesson is looking at cancer. And what is cancer? So cancer is the rapid and uncontrolled cell division that forms into a tumor. So whenever our body cells undergo mitosis, they have built-in checks to prevent cells from becoming cancerous and growing uncontrollably. There's a thing called apoptosis, where a cell can spontaneously, it can self-destruct itself, basically. And there are other ways that cells can prevent themselves from growing rapidly. But cancer cells are unique because they don't follow these rules and continue going. And this forms a tumor, which is just a large growth of rapidly uncontrolled cells that are divided. This often occurs due to a mutation in DNA. So if there is a mutation, then these cells can likely split and overgo their control mechanism. And there are multiple ways this can be triggered. So it can be genetic, caused by something inherited, or it can be caused by environmental factors. And these environmental factors can range from things like UV rays from sun, which can cause skin cancer, or various chemicals that have been proven to be tied to cause cancer. And these environmental factors that cause it are called carcinogens. So carcinogens can be a variety of different things, like UV rays and chemicals, which can all cause cancer. Okay, so now we'll move on to some practice questions. Okay, so first we have question number 26. It is recommended that people avoid excessive use of tanning beds. Exposure to the radiation emitted by tanning beds can cause skin cancer. This cancer is a direct result of, and then, so 1 is a change in the starch molecule. So we know that cancer is not caused by starches, so 1 would definitely not be our answer. The second one is a mutation in the genetic material. So this one would be our answer, as changes in genetic material cause cells to get rid of their control mechanisms, which can cause them to become cancerous and grow uncontrollably. But we'll just look through the rest of our answers to be safe. Number 3 says a mutation in the protein, which would not be our answer, because proteins aren't regulating or controlling cell division. That's rather DNA and genetic material. And finally, a change in a fat molecule, that also the same issue with the protein or starch. They don't regulate cell division. So our answer would be 2. Next, we have question number 5. Before a cell divides, an exact copy of each chromosome is made by the process of. 1 is genetic engineering. So this would not be the correct answer, because genetic engineering is specifically humans going in and manually editing DNA, which does not occur every time a cell divides and chromosomes duplicate. Second, we have replication, which would be our correct answer, because that's just the term for chromosomes replicating is called replication. Next, we have a mutation, which is not mutations. While mutations may occur, that is not the copying of chromosomes. That's an issue or something that goes wrong with a genetic sequence on a chromosome. And finally, we have recombination, which is not the creation of multiple, or it's not the copying of chromosomes. That's something else entirely, which we'll discuss in a later video. So our answer would be 2. And then we have one last question here. This is number 8. Genetic researchers have discovered a number of different gene mutations that have led to the development of cancer. These mutations affect how frequently a cell reproduces. Which process would be most directly influenced by these mutations? So here we know that these mutations affect how frequently the cell reproduces. So it's a question about cell division. So first is differentiation of cells in an embryo. So while cells are reproducing when it's in an embryonic state, it wouldn't affect the differentiation of the cells, and this would not be the cancer or the development of cancer. So this would not be our answer. The second one is meiotic cell division, which is not our answer because the cancer cells are not going to be in these specific meiotic cells are producing the gametes, so it wouldn't be affecting the meiotic cell. And the other way we know that this is not the answer is because question number 3 talks about the division of sperm and egg cells, and meiotic cell division is the division of sperm and egg cells. So this is just a little Regents trick. These two answers are functionally the same thing. So you know that it can't be either of them because the division of sperm and egg cells and the creation of those egg cells is meiotic cell division. So these two just by default cannot be the answer because there would be no way to distinguish between the two, which is just a little trick you can use on these tests. So that leaves us with number 4, which is the answer, as cancer affects often affects the somatic cells when they're reproducing, causing them to skip past all their control mechanisms and replicate uncontrolled and forming a tumor. So number 4 would be our best answer. And that's it. Thank you for listening.